As we were fleshing out how do we best diversify our sports event portfolio, it really opened up an opportunity for us to really tell a specific sports story related to sports tourism.
Okay, welcome again, everyone, to another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker. For those of you that are fairly new, I own an advertising agency called Relic. We focus on the destination marketing industry, and we continued to kind of see the same problems and challenges coming up for multiple destinations. And we wanted to create a platform where we could talk about these challenges and kind of give everybody the answers from the people that we meet and see that have solved them. And so we've got a great episode for you today. His name is Nick Povalitis. He's our guest, and he is from Rockford, Illinois. And Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Adam, for having me. Hopefully you guys will enjoy some of what we're going to talk about. So happy to be here.
Oh, we will. And I know that from our intro call. You've got some great stuff going on in Rockford, and I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Yeah, so Rockford's obviously my hometown, so excited to be here, excited to work in tourism. And yeah, I mean, Rockford's a great place to be, and there's a lot that is going on in the sports market, and even on the leisure side more recently. So yeah, we're excited about what the future holds.
Great. Well, to get things started, we always ask kind of some icebreaker questions just to get you going. We'll start with, what is your dream destination? If you could go anywhere in the world, where would that be?
Places that are vibrant, that have got innate vibrancy to them. So I still remember my first trip to New York, and there's a certain feel that you get when you walk through that city. So anything that can kind of inject life into you, if it's a leisure-oriented vacation, obviously beaches with the family are pretty important. So, but anything that injects vibrancy and a good gut feeling into you is definitely a place to be. So I always go back to New York, and it's kind of what I know in terms of a big city with that type of vibe.
So you're pretty easy to please then, Nick. Like as long as it's got some vibrancy to it, as long as it's fun, you're having a great time.
Yeah, I just like to not really have an itinerary either. So that's definitely a place that you can get lost in. You can explore, you can walk. It's very walkable, and that's another appealing element to a place like New York. So get lost and walk a little bit and just kind of see how the day unfolds. That's definitely a dream type scenario for me.
So you're not the over planner that sits down at the computer and goes through every minute of the trip and makes sure that you've got an activity plan. You'll kind of go there and figure it out along the way.
I will go with the flow. I am not the planner in the family by any stretch. I prefer to go with the flow. Sometimes that's very helpful. Probably more often than not that has bitten me at work and play sometimes. So I'm open to people who plan, but I cannot claim to be a great planner in terms of how I travel and how I even kind of go about some of the ideas that pop into my head from a business standpoint. So that's not my strong point.
Yeah, that's all right. It sounds like you insinuated that in your family you have a planner, you just don't happen to be the planner in the family.
Yes, that's correct. My wife of now 15 years is definitely the planner. So thankfully.
Nice. Every family needs one.
No doubt about that.
Oh, that's good. Well, tell me a little bit about your background, Nick, and tell me a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so born and raised here in Rockford, was born in the early 80s and spent my childhood here. Spent some time away once I went to college in Champaign, Illinois, to U of I, the Fighting Illini. Big fan still. At that point in time, I went down to school there, not quite knowing what I wanted to get into, and kind of found my way into a journalism and communications degree. And as part of that whole track, I began volunteering right for the newspaper when I was down there. Worked in athletic department with Illinois Division of Intercollegiate Athletics, which was more on the PR, public relations side of things. And that really opened up a door for me to get into sports business specifically. And my boss down at U of I is still there. Kent Brown made a phone call for me and ended up helping to get me an interview up at Northwestern for an internship in 2002 and 2003. And that was in media relations as well. So dabbled with that for a year. It was an awesome experience. Of course, living in Evanston, and a suburb just north of Chicago, is a great place to be as a 22, 23-year-old kid. That institution itself, Northwestern, is one of the best in the country. So you're getting the caliber of student athletes and administrative personnel behind it that you can really learn a lot from. Being a young 22, 23-year-old kid. Went very well, and my boss there actually had worked for 14 years down at a Division III school in St. Louis that coincidentally, as my internship at Northwestern was wrapping up, a full-time position as an assistant SID, sports information director, opened up down at Washington University in St. Louis. So talk about an awesome beginning to a career, going from my student work and newspaper at the Daily Illini, my time in athletics at U of I, my year at Northwestern, and then shifting to St. Louis, all within like a 2 to 3 year time period. It was just an amazing experience and great opportunity for me. So at that time, my wife and I were not married, but she ended up picking up after she graduated from school. And we both moved down to St. Louis in 2003, summer of 2003, for the first full-time position that I had, again, at WashU. And talk about another amazing institution. And they're a multiple-time national champion. So the caliber of coaches and student athletes that you're dealing with at that school, it's a bit different because it's Division III. So there's, Division I athletes are of a different caliber more often than not than Division III. But the success that they achieved, they were a comparable mid-major D1 in some sports that could compete on that level. And oh, by the way, there's some of the best students that are in the country. So it's like a Midwestern Ivy League type school is the quality of education that you get at WashU. So I was very fortunate to work with the staff there and the administration there for 4 years, and learned a ton. Was a part of the statistical and public relations teams for some national championship teams down there. And a position opened up for my wife in 2007 here back home in Rockford. So we made the decision after we had our first of 3 kids now to come back up this way. So that ultimately led us back to Rockford.
So strong sports background, right? And specifically PR and marketing within sports to kind of lead you to where you are today.
Exactly. And I've been able to apply that background and that education that I received as a student and as an intern and as a first time career person down in St. Louis. I've been able to apply that storytelling narrative to obviously my time here at Rockford Area CVB, but also between the time we moved back home in 2007 to 2012 when I joined the Rockford Area CVB. There was a 5-year stint that I had at a uniform company as a route manager. So talk about a complete switch from sports, to a blue collar type role, more of a corporate setting. So I've been fortunate to have the background in sports and PR that I've been able to apply to every career stop along the way. It's been very important for me.
Sounds great. And then today you're running the sports marketing for the Rockford CVB, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. I've been a part of the sales team since I started in 2012. Had a couple different role changes. More recently, changed to director of sports development about 2 years ago. And then very recently shifted into a marketing and sports development role within the organization. So I'm still overseeing the sports development piece, anything new business that's related to the sports segment. I'm a part of that process, but I'm also working with the marketing team as VP of marketing now as well for the organization. So it's been another shift for me within the past 2 months.
Congrats. That's great stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting.
Well, recently we had Bill Geist on the show, and he talked a little bit about Rockford. And I want to ask if you were there for this, and if not, we'll just kind of move on to some of the other topics we discussed before. But he mentioned that Forbes at one point mentioned Rockford as one of the worst places to be, or worst places to visit, or most miserable, or something like that. And you guys came back with a brilliant video response. Were you there during that time?
Yes, that was right around 2012, maybe early 2013. Basically,
Okay.
Forbes released a list of the top 10 most miserable cities in the U.S., and we were ranked number 3.
Oh, man.
So for a variety of reasons, right? But go ahead.
Well, it would be really easy in that scenario to just be pissed off, right? And just say, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. You guys kind of leaned into it and came up with a great response. Tell me a little bit about how that happened, and then what was the response?
Well, to your point on us being a little bit annoyed by it, let's say, that's absolutely true. But you can take that frustration and use it for good or for bad. So we chose to work with our design firm locally, an agency called Graham Spencer, in crafting a Misery Loves Company campaign, basically. So we took their miserable rating and flipped it upside down. And the campaign featured probably 5 to 6 local partners that were doing amazing stuff within the Rockford area that was also getting some buzz outside of the region. So we were able to reshape what Forbes framed us as a miserable place to be, and misery loves company, so we're going to enjoy each other's company. And as an extension of that, about 4 months after Misery Loves Company, we actually printed T-shirts, rolled out Misery Loves Company at our theater downtown. It was a huge hit locally. But after that, the next iteration of Misery Loves Company was In Good Company, right? And there's still ties to In Good Company at present day. So obviously, In Good Company is a very locally oriented campaign that shines light on local attractions, local restaurateurs, local entrepreneurs that are in some way connected to tourism and are helping to tell the story of Rockford in a positive light on behalf of us. So that was kind of the whole manifestation of, you go from a miserable top 10 ranking to Misery Loves Company to In Good Company. And that's even continuing to shape some of our marketing collaterals. We're doing a new experience guide, visitor guide, and making some ad design updates at present day right now as we speak. And the In Good Company theme is trickling into our new ads, 8-9 years later.
So not only did you guys come up with a brilliant response, but you were able to leverage that response into your ongoing campaign after the fact. It's almost like the Forbes article was a great thing to have happen to you. It didn't feel like it at the time, but now you leverage that into multiple tactics and campaigns after the fact. I think that's a pretty awesome way to handle what some people would call a crisis.
Sure. And I'm not sure how well thought out that was. Going into it, you think it's got some legs and you could do something with it. But as the story kind of unfolds, you're able to apply a different layer to it, right? So misery turns into Good Company. And from there, we're crafting what we're doing today, some updated video content as well. So who knows where it will go from here. But yeah, you could definitely track it back to Forbes's miserable article about Rockford. It was kind of the birth of this whole thing. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's really good marketing to be able to react like that. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on today, though, was because of your sports background and some of the things that you're doing with sports within your destination. And you mentioned to me that you work with a professional athlete to act almost as a spokesperson for the destination. Would you mind kind of walking me through the process of securing a professional athlete and what it's been like to have him involved over the years?
Sure. So the biggest name that you're referencing would be Fred VanVleet. He's a point guard for the Toronto Raptors, NBA champion as of last year, which was awesome. Fred has always been a big supporter of Rockford. He still carries the flag of the city around him wherever he goes. If you look at his social media channels, he still represents Rockford right at the top next to his name. So he is all about being proud of where he's from. So I guess to back up a little bit, and part of this could even be an extension of In Good Company. As we were fleshing out, how do we best diversify our sports event portfolio probably 6 or 7 years ago, we made some intentional efforts at going after Quidditch, going after Ultimate Frisbee, going after rugby and lacrosse championships. We had some success in doing so. So as those successes started to unfold, it really opened up an opportunity for us to really tell a specific sports story related to sports tourism. We've long been a destination steeped in sports tourism dating back to 1984 when we were founded. We have 2 outdoor multi-purpose sports complexes and one that's relatively new, an 8-court basketball facility. But over the course of 35 years, it's taken us to get to this point, but we've never really flushed out what our sports narrative should be. So from the success we had about 5-6 years ago on the event side, being able to land some events that we never hosted, we looked at establishing a brand, carving out a brand. So we worked with the same design firm that actually came up with Misery Loves Company. They put together a logo and a tagline entitled Bring a Game to Rockford. And from that was kind of the platform for us to breathe life into it. So this is probably mid-2016, and this is just before Fred's finishing up his senior year at Wichita State. So at that time, it was probably April of 16. We reached out to Fred before he was even done with college, before the NBA draft, just about doing a photo shoot to begin to find a way to connect some of our most successful athletes and sports business people, put them in the context of a sports tourism venue for trade publication advertisements, and help them or have them help tell the story of Rockford. And at that point, it becomes a little bit more organic. The story for us is more authentic, and beyond just the visitors that see a sports tourism complex and a trade publication, our residents can see that same ad featuring Fred VanVleet, and they could be inspired, right, to go on and do bigger and better things outside of Rockford. So that was kind of the manifestation of how our first contact with Fred happened. Since then, it's grown exponentially. It's kind of mirrored his success. I mean, certainly his success drives the whole thing. I don't know how specific you want to get into working directly with Fred, but we've been able to build out, in addition to putting him in trade publication, advertisements, featuring him digitally within the context of our tourism venues. We've been able to build out some event productions alongside him now locally. That's gotten big buzz. And that kind of culminated last summer during the month of June, specifically from June 6th through June 29th. We produced 3 events, 2 of which were watch parties.
Which is during the finals, right?
Correct. Yeah. So 2 of which were watch parties. And then the third, fortunately, was a celebratory homecoming event that we put together for him that turned out about 8,000 people downtown. That was pretty cool.
That's fantastic. Tell me about that event. What was it called? How did you get the word out? Tell me a little bit about it.
So I guess I'll start with the first. The first 2 were watch parties, right? So once the Raptors took a 3-1 lead over the Warriors last June, we had been monitoring, obviously, what Toronto does to market their team. And everybody has seen what they do outside the arena there, outside of Scotiabank Arena, that they do a Jurassic Park themed party atmosphere watch party outside adjacent to the venue. So we took that model and just applied it to Rockford. We called it Jurassic Park, RKFD, short for Rockford. And basically after Game 5 went final, or Game 4 went final, they were up 3-1. We put out on social media just a little teaser graphic, Jurassic Park, RKFD, details tomorrow. And from that, we were able to release full details. Obviously, the media went crazy locally about it. So for Game 5, we had a watch party. 2,500 people turned up for Game 5's watch party. And it featured food trucks, a giant blow-up screen TV, a live DJ. Fred has got a brick-and-mortar store downtown Rockford. His shop personnel were selling his gear on site as well. Turned into a big smash hit. They ended up losing Game 5 by 1 point, and Fred had the ball in his hands actually with about 2 seconds left. He ended up passing it to, I think it was Lowry, who missed a shot at the end.
What a mistake.
Yeah.
What a mistake. Take the shot.
Could have been beautiful, but it actually turned out okay. We came back Game 6, a little bit heartbroken after Game 5, produced Jurassic Park RKFD watch party number 2, and about 4,000 people showed up that night. And we had more big screens that night. We had a bigger jumbo screen that night. Again, the community turned out for it. Turned into a fantastic hit for us on social media. We had, obviously, the Toronto media picked up on it. We were the only Jurassic Park in honor of the Raptors playoff run that was held in the United States. So that we had people driving in from Chicago that were Raptors fans and Fred fans driving in to hang out at Jurassic Park Rockford. And Barstool Sports picked up on it. Toronto Sun picked up on it. The Score, which is a pretty significant media outlet related to sports, picked up on it. TSN, which is the equivalent of ESPN in Canada, picked up on it. So we got a ton of traction. And, of course, Fred has always been a huge partner in getting the word out, too. So
sure.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, how did that idea come about? Because I'm hearing, okay, Forbes came out with that article. You guys had a great response that you turned around really quickly, right?
Yep.
And then Fred VanVleet is in the finals, and you guys aren't like, hey, let's just remind people he's from Rockford. No, let's create an incredible event that mirrors what they do in Toronto, and let's use that as a platform to get some amazing PR opportunities for Rockford. And I don't know, it just seems like you guys as an organization are very nimble from the sounds of it. And I just want to hear kind of your process for coming up with these ideas.
So you reference being nimble, and we talk a lot about being nimble or agile within the organization, and really within the destination organization industry, the tourism industry. You've got to have some agility to be able to respond to things like this. As far as the idea itself, I don't want to minimize that specific idea, because it was the product of 3.5 years worth of work with Fred that kind of made that whole thing possible and made it a natural fit for us to fill that gap, so to speak. I don't know that there would have been another entity in town that would have thought to try and organize a community-oriented civic pride event in honor of Fred, and we just happened to be that entity. The idea itself came together very easily. Literally
Yeah.
within probably a few minutes between myself and a couple people on staff, we had a creative piece to run with. Obviously, I've been in contact with Fred's marketing folks here locally, and they were supportive of it. They had hosted at a bar in town the first 4 games, like a miniature watch party, an NBA Finals watch party. It was not dubbed Jurassic Park Rockford or any of that. So basically, we took, with them advancing to Game 5 with a 3-1 lead, it just becomes, how big do you want to try and make it? If you keep it inside of a bar downtown Rockford, it's limited to 150 people, right? If you open it up underneath the pavilion in downtown Rockford that already hosts, every Friday in the summertime, this place called City Market hosts City Market now, right? So it's like a festival, like a farm fresh festival that's held every Friday from May through October. So the space was there, and it just kind of manifested itself into an opportunity for us to create Jurassic Park Rockford. And really that's kind of in a nutshell how it came to be. But again, it was the byproduct of 3.5 years of work. And it was almost like we were there with Fred before we needed to be there, right, so to speak, because he was undrafted. There wasn't many people, quite frankly, in town that were getting behind him to the level that we did before the NBA draft even happened. So we were there early enough. We were able to establish the relationship with Fred and his friends and his business associates locally early enough that I think they just trusted us to come with ideas. It still continues to manifest itself, but I think we earned the trust, 3.5 years ago to bring these ideas to him and to his friends, and they'll listen to us because we've had success. And we've not made it so much about us either. I mean, it's about community pride. It's about establishing memories for people, right? I mean, people will remember when they were at Fred Comes Home, which is the championship celebration that we produced. Like, there'll be kids there 25 years from now that'll point to that day being a special day. And that's why we're trying to do it. I mean, the brand building, the brand awareness components that come along with it, of course that's going to come, and we love that. But it's about creating experiences, right, that people will remember. And it just continues to snowball and build our credibility, and it builds our relationship with Fred. And who knows what we can do next. And that's how we're approaching it.
Yeah, I think another thing that it speaks to is consistency, because you guys were committed to your partnership with Fred for 3.5 years leading up to that event. And a lot of destinations, I think, because they've seen, so let's say you as the destination marketer see your ads over and over and over again, and you kind of get a little sick of it, and you get that fatigue, right? And you're ready to move on or change it and do something new. The willingness to be consistent and stick with a message if it's still resonating with your audience, I think it's so critical, because let's say 2 years in, you said, okay, well, this Fred thing's run its course, let's move on. Well, boy, you don't get any of that stuff, once that partnership is over. And so you guys stuck with it. You were consistent with that message, and I think it really paid dividends.
And so where it's led us now, obviously, Fred himself was thrilled with how the homecoming event went last June 29th. And he even made a little statement on his Instagram, it's only the beginning. And that's the mentality that I think we've been successful with, whether we're talking about going after a USA Ultimate National Championship or an AAU Basketball National Championship, or God willing, we can get an NBA preseason game here, which is definitely one of the goals that we have working with Fred. There's always room for more, and he thinks that way. I think that way, and it's just been an awesome 3.5 year journey thus far. But the reality is we're going to accomplish so much more. And there are other athletes and sports business people that are from the area that are doing really awesome things as well that we're beginning to establish relationships with, whether we're talking a UFC fighter from Rockford, Illinois, which is 13 miles north. We've got a great rapport with him, and we're pursuing a UFC fight night, right? So ESPN Sports Center has got an anchor who's from the area. We've had her back to present to like a sports symposium style audience, and she's been fantastic to work with. So there's more examples of really successful sports oriented people that are out there, that are from Rockford, that are out there representing Rockford, that maybe have not had an easy platform or vehicle to come back home and give back to. So we're trying to think more holistically that way. How can we accommodate other people that have gone on besides Fred? And now what we're seeing is Fred's able to come back home, and he's seeing us work with other really successful people, and they're starting to mingle, and it's becoming more of a thing kind of organically, locally, which is kind of cool to see. And who knows what will happen?
Yeah, that's great stuff. One question I have for you is, okay, there might be some other destinations listening that may be considering attempting to form a partnership with a professional athlete from their destination, or that is a key figure in their destination. What would you say they need to be aware of and watch out for? Because it's obviously not just smooth sailing when working with a professional athlete. There's a lot of stuff that you have to navigate. Their time is limited, and they have an agent that negotiates a lot of their stuff. So what are the things that a destination needs to be aware of before they try to get involved with a professional athlete?
I think you touched on a few of them. One of the recurring themes that I always go back to, and I've been able to have success with Fred and with Nicole from ESPN, with Corey, with the UFC. We don't really make it so much about us. We're flexible with their schedule. I think that's where the agility piece comes in, especially early on, because you have to build trust. For us, it's very clear when we work with Fred, we get marketing ROI for it, right? But for him, it's not clear at the onset the value that we can bring. So you've got to go at it with almost like a selfless approach, right? You have to be willing to invest time
Yeah.
and a little bit of resources at the onset, knowing that the best interest of everybody is in the long term, right? You're not looking for something immediately. So there's that component. Their time is very valuable as well. So I mean, Fred's getting pulled in so many different directions, and he's not always going to answer a text or an email. And you just have to understand that, and you have to have faith in your process. You have to have faith in the trust that you've built, that he or she will deliver on what they say they're going to deliver, despite the communication not always being maybe as timely as you would like. So you've got to be understanding that it's really hard to try to put yourself in their shoes, right? You have that type of success. There's so many people in endorsement deals that are coming through. Your phone's probably ringing and you're getting text messages all the time and you're being asked to do stuff all the time. So it's hard to understand that unless you go through it. So you have to be able to separate yourself a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, that's good stuff. I appreciate you giving us that context on working with a professional athlete and some of the benefits, obviously, and challenges that come along with that. Another thing that you and I talked about on our intro call, you mentioned that you focused, and this has been a recent initiative, to focus your budget locally as opposed to spending so much outside of your destination. And I think that's a little bit of a paradigm shift from what a lot of destinations do. It's about getting people from outside the destination to the destination. Tell me what led to you guys, deciding to spend those dollars locally, and what your strategy is there.
Well, we're not spending less outside of 50 miles. That's true. We have increased our budget within the last probably 6 years now. We've increased it through corporate partnerships to fund some locally produced events. We have had some success get some additional grant funding as well. But basically, we've been kind of following the lead of the tourism industry as a whole. We probably were a little bit earlier than most destinations in that we do have a dedicated destination development team that focuses on producing a few different events locally. One of which is our flagship organizational event called Stroll on State. It's a holiday festival held annually the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So we produce that to fill a gap downtown. Long ago, we had a New Year's celebration downtown. That has since gone away. We had up until about 8 years ago a music festival downtown in September that has since gone away. So there's no real flagship downtown community-oriented event. And we decided to carve out, that placemaking experiential annual event downtown to hopefully drive some retail development downtown to support some of the sports facilities and some of the hotel projects that are actually coming to fruition this spring. Those are also downtown. So we were maybe a little bit ahead of ourselves in terms of being so locally focused and trying to drive people downtown, but it was all done with a little bit of foresight and with the intentionality to support the tourism industry and to entice people to want to be part of an experience downtown, right? Which supports our economy. Everybody kind of wins from it.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about what you've seen as a result. Or is your downtown a lot busier than it's been in the past, or tell me about those results?
Almost. So Stroll on State year one was 2013. Since then, I don't know the exact percentages, but most storefronts that were vacant are now occupied by new restaurants, local shops. There's been development of a hotel that actually was talked about for probably the last 15 years. It was an old furniture fastener. So Rockford's manufacturing history is steeped in agriculture, millwork, furniture fasteners, and manufacturing and aerospace now. So there was an old factory downtown that's been repurposed 13 stories into what will be an Embassy Suites. That project most likely would not have happened without the downtown investment that was at least in part sparked by events like Stroll on State. So they're going to open their doors June 1 of this year, 159 rooms downtown with an attached conference center with 15,000 square feet of meeting space. It'll be our highest end property. And it again continues to make downtown a true destination for residents and visitors alike. So any way that we can blend that story, we look at it as it makes our overall tourism product better. What is our overall tourism product? It's Winnebago County. It's Rockford primarily. It's Loves Park. It's McChesney Park. It's Rockton, Roscoe, Winnebago, and Pecatonica. Those are the communities that we represent. If we can invest locally, promote better locally, be a better collaborator locally so that everybody rises up, it makes it easier to sell Rockford area as a destination for a sports tournament. It makes it easier to bring in a meeting and convention downtown when they see that there's stuff going on downtown. So you may not always get a heads and beds direct benefit by producing Stroll on State or a mural festival, but you're going to see it long term, and that's kind of the philosophy behind it.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Great stuff, Nick. Well, tell me, what's next for Rockford? What's your next big initiative you guys are working on?
So we are going into year 2 of Creative, which is the mural festival. That was launched last year. We did 7 murals last year, and I think we're funded right now to do 5 this year. You're going to see more commitment to the arts locally for sure. The idea is to create places that people want to visit, that people feel comfortable in visiting. So beautification and initiatives are going to continue on the locally produced, local partnership side of things. But as it relates to our events, we're looking at continuing to expand. So we've had 6 junior college national championships book with our junior college that we drove the sales process for that. We want to leverage that into potentially NCAA championship winning bids. We would love to do more arena events, hence the NBA preseason game nod that was thrown out there a little bit earlier. We just want to do more. I mean, keep doing more with less, and hopefully we can find a way to at least retain all of our funding, if not increase it. So there's some deliberate steps being taken right now to secure our future and to give us more flexibility down the road in terms of finances too. So I think that's an issue that.
And be nimble and ready all along the way,
Exactly.
right?
Probably the biggest issue that faces tourism right now is the competition for funding, right? I mean, I don't think that's ever going to go away.
Yep.
So the more we can do with our funding, the smarter we can spend it, the more we're going to justify having the ability to grow that number as well and to keep bringing in business, keep product developing locally to support the overall product.
Well, good stuff, Nick. I appreciate you taking the time today. I think it's funny. We haven't had anybody on that's talked about, a celebrity endorser or anything like that. And I think it's been kind of fun to get that perspective from you today.
I appreciate it. And when you say celebrity endorser, there are plenty of examples out there where it's gone wrong. So you can just
exactly.
Google tourism and celebrity endorser or what have you, and you could probably find some examples. But again, we want to try and make it very easy for these people to come back home and be a part of engaging. So we're excited about it. We've had success, but by no means are we done.
Yeah. Well, that's great and fun to see it done the right way. Well, Nick, this has been wonderful to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. And if we can help down the road, we're here, and I'd love to learn from some more people as well. So I'll be listening in the future. I promise.
Well, great. And for everybody out there that might be listening, a couple of reminders. Make sure that you join our LinkedIn group, Destination Marketers. That's where whenever we have something that we talk about on the show that's kind of tangible, we want to post it there in that LinkedIn group so that people can see it and learn from it and actually get a visual on what was talked about audibly on the show. And so, Nick, if you don't mind, maybe we'll have you maybe post some of those articles, or you could send us links to those articles and we'll get them posted so that our community can kind of see and check those out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can definitely send you some stuff and would be happy to help. So appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thanks to you, Nick, and thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week.